Um, Good afternoon or good evening, my YouTube viewers. It's Palestine here. Welcome to my channel. Basically, I wanted to make another video. I wanted to make a video in my bedroom, but there's a really overcast shadow in my bedroom, and I thought, well, it's not going to make a very good video if there's an overcast shadow. So I thought, okay, well, I'll come into my kitchen and I'll make the video in my kitchen. There's an overcast shadow in the kitchen too, but I'm hoping that it's not as overcast as it is in the bedroom. And also, I'm very particular about my videos. I know I'm really poor and destitute, so I don't have a lot of equipment to make videos. I just have a smartphone, and what I'm doing right now is my smartphone is resting on a coffee cup and holding it in place because I had a tripod that I got from the iPhone shop, well, iPhone repair shop in the town that I live in, but the actual holder that the tripod comes in is too small for my phone, so I ended up giving it to my autistic friend, and so he's gonna collect it for his daughter. His daughter has run away, but if she ever comes home, then she's got that tripod that she can use, because it wasn't really any good for me because my phone was too big for the iPhone holder. He has an iPhone, and so it fit an iPhone, but it didn't fit my Android phone. So I wanted to make this video because, number one, I'm still upset about that dream I had last night or early this morning, and it was to do with work. And I hope that it doesn't come true. I know that I'm not doing anything that I'm not supposed to be doing, but I still hope that nobody casts any, I don't know if aspersions is the correct word, but we'll just say aspersions on me, because I'm not monetized. Both of my YouTube channels are not monetized. I have a data science channel that I use to study data science, and the reason why is because I can't retire because of my financial situation. So if something happens to my current job, then I'm going to have to try to find another job, hopefully working online. And so that's why I have to study data science in pretty much all of my free time. And I've studied a variety of topics such as Python, R, machine learning, statistics, Excel, and I'm going to continue to try to update my skill set. So if something happens to my current job, then I can start applying for other remote jobs, part-time remote jobs. And this channel is not monetized. I only have 119 subscribers, and so I can't get monetized, and I don't know if I even would be able to monetize it because of the sensitive subjects that I talk about, and a lot of advertisers wouldn't want to advertise on my channel. As there's this one lady called Francine, Francine's Cancer Journey, and she has to keep changing words around and not saying words and things like that because she is monetized, and she does actually have a website, a YouTube channel that you can join, which I haven't joined it. I haven't got any money to join a YouTube channel, but she has to change words and things like that, because a lot of advertisers won't want to advertise on a channel if you use words that they don't find appealing. And so I could probably when I get my state pension, I could probably monetize my data science channel, but because of the sensitive nature of a lot of things that I talk about on this channel, I'm not sure that I could ever get it monetized, because I would have to be, like changing words around and using initials and stuff like that. So I don't feel very good. I don't feel very good about that dream I had at all. And that just shows you what a wreck my life is, that I've had so many tragic experiences that I can have a dream and it'll bother me all day, all week, all month, all year. And so, but what I was wanting to do is I wanted to carry on, now that you know about me, about how I'm feeling, not very well mentally because of this dream I had. I wanted to carry on from the video that I made this morning about my mother's health, about how she had forgotten things when she had her bleed on the brain, which is a stroke, and how she's pretty much immobile now. So when they were doing physical therapy for her, I think one time she was able to take 100 steps, but I'm not sure that she's going to continue walking if she's not got somebody watching her and pushing her to do it, because she told her friend, who's part of this text message ring that I wasn't invited to join, that she doesn't want to walk because she's afraid that if she walks she'll fall again, and she doesn't want to do that. So this, and then I was saying about my stepdad giving her a bath. My stepdad is like 87. He's had like open heart surgery at least once that I know of, maybe twice. My stepdad and my mom, they used to have their finances separate, but when he had this latest round of open heart surgery, he put her on his bank, so she's allowed to access his finances, which is good because she doesn't have a pension, because she told me that she cashed in her pension because she didn't think she was going to get old. And one of my pensions is a Barclays pension, and I'm only going to get like £3 a month off of it. And so I'd like to cash that in, because I think, well, it's not worth very much. But I dare not cash it in, because when I reach state pension age, which is about a year and a half from now, I'm gonna need that £3 a month, And so even though it's not very much, I'll have to use that pension and my pension that I got from Foster Wheeler. And I've also got a pension from where I'm working now, but I will have to use all of my pensions, and then I will have to show those pensions to the DWP to show them that I am living off my pension, but it won't be much. It's not going to be much at all. It's not going to be much at all, and that's why I'm not really looking forward to getting old, or than I already am. But so my stepdad, he did eventually, after like maybe 60-something years, put my mom on his finances so she can access his finances. But, and then we talked about him giving her a bath. So they don't have a physical relationship. They haven't had a physical relationship since early after their marriage. So we'll say they haven't had a physical relationship for at least 50 years, maybe longer. And so, I don't know if he's going to want to give her a bath. They sleep in separate bedrooms. They're not intimate. They haven't slept in the same bedroom in decades, maybe half a century. And so, I don't know if he's going to want to give her a bath. That might be too much for him. But let's say hypothetically, he wanted to give her a bath. I suppose that what he could do is, if she's got a chair in her shower, because her bedroom has a bathroom attached to the bedroom, and it has a shower. Now, if she had a chair installed on the shower, he could, even though he's in his 80s, if he could stand looking at an old body, he could, like, take the nozzle from the shower, hold the nozzle down, and he could, like, spray her with warm water so she could wash herself. Now, that's something that he could do if he could stand looking at an old body, because you've got to understand, they haven't been intimate for at least 50 years. They haven't shared a bedroom for at least 50 years. So that might be something that he doesn't want to do. And so that sort of like made me think about my own situation, because my second husband was English, and he's a nasty man. He was living in a town, which I don't want to say the town that he was living in, but he's a nasty man. And I tell you what, he was always telling me how fat I was. I wish I was that fat now, And I have broad shoulders and small hips, and I put my weight on around the middle because I've had polycystic ovarian syndrome. He was just an awful man. And at this time, a man could do pretty much anything he wanted to his wife, and nobody was going to do anything about it. Nobody was going to do anything to stop it. And so there were not laws at that point in history, because it was a long time ago. It was like 35 years ago, 36 years ago. At that point in history in the UK, there were not very many laws to protect a woman against her husband. So he just pretty much did whatever it is that he wanted to do to me. And he was nasty. But fortunately for me, a lot of his urges were of a self nature. So he was a DIY kind of guy. And so he had no interest in me because he just wanted to do it himself. But on the few occasions that he was interested in me, well, I wasn't interested in him, and I didn't agree to it. And there were no laws in the UK at that time to protect me from my husband, especially considering the fact that I was in this country and I didn't have any friends or family to help me out. So I was subjected to a lot of abuse. And I remember one time I was distraught about the things that he was doing. And I rang up my mom, and one of her girlfriends picked up the phone. And she said, well, if you're not careful, you're going to lose that man. And I just thought, well, he's not worth keeping. But I had given up my career. I had no place to go. It was pretty obvious my family didn't want me back, even 35 years ago. So my family is saying things about me that I have done recently when I was distraught. But even 35 years ago, they weren't interested in me. They didn't want me back. So they can say things that I've done recently because I was being harassed to the point of distraction. But 35 years ago, they weren't interested in having me. They weren't interested in helping me. So I just had to submit to the abuse that I endured in that marriage. And so basically, it wasn't because he was, shall we say, autoerotic. So we weren't intimate that many times. But the times that we were intimate, I didn't agree to it. It was forced upon me. And the police wouldn't do anything. They would just say it's a domestic. There were no laws on the books to protect a woman who did not submit to intimacy with her husband. And so, but most of the abuse, there was some forced intimacy that I didn't agree to, but most of it was mental and verbal abuse. He would make comments about my weight, and I wish I was that fat now. He would tell me I was overweight and out of shape. One time he came home and I was a size 12. He told me that I was a grossly overweight sexual turnoff because I'd come home, I was hungry from working all day long. I come home and I was eating a salad. And he said I was a grossly overweight sexual turnoff. And I was really upset, and I just thought, well, that's the last time I'm going to share my bed with you. But that's what I wanted to say to him. But I had to submit to all that kind of abuse. And then he would walk around the bedroom and he would puff his stomach out to try to humiliate me because I have polycystic ovarian syndrome and I put my weight on around my middle. And another thing that he would do is he would go into these magazines where people were selling, like dating magazines, but it was dating for money, where people were selling their services. And he would go into the magazines, and obviously he would read the articles, but he always also would advertise in the magazines. And when he was advertising in the magazines, now I was at work when all this was going on. I didn't know what he was doing, but he would take a picture of himself and he would black out his eyes. But other than that, he would take pictures of himself with himself being aroused so you could see it all. I found all this out because one time, I don't know how it happened, but somebody obviously knew what he was doing. Somebody had slipped in the letterbox, and I don't think it was in the post. I don't really recall seeing postage on it. But somebody had slipped in the letterbox when he had gone to his job in a telecommunications company, and they put it through the letterbox, and I saw it and I thought, what is this? And I opened it up, and it was an advert that he placed using this really profane language that I had never heard before in my life, and a picture of himself, a Polaroid picture of himself in an aroused state, and he just blacked out his eyes. And that's when I realized that I didn't know my husband at all, that he was living a secret life, and I didn't know anything about him at all. And then in addition to that, obviously I realized, my marriage was over. He was advertising in these magazines. And obviously after that, I didn't want to be near him because he could have given me AIDS or something like that. This was 35 years ago when they were doing AIDS testing on people. They didn't have the treatments for HIV and AIDS that they have now. So I didn't want to be near him because I was afraid that he was going to give me AIDS. he also was telephoning these phone numbers, these sex hotlines. And I found that out because we got the phone bill. And he ran up hundreds and hundreds of pounds phoning these hotlines, these sex hotlines. So I rang one of the numbers and I said, well, what number is this? And they told me, the person who answered the phone said, well, it's a sex hotline. So my husband was advertising in these magazines and he was running up hundreds and hundreds of pounds on these sex hotlines. He had pornographic literature hidden in the house, which I found by accident. I wasn't looking for pornographic literature, but he had it above the cabinet in the kitchen, and I don't know what happened, but I was looking for something. So I went in there and I found this pornographic literature that was above the kitchen in the cabinet. And even before we got married, he had an A4 sheet of paper with letters of women and their vital statistics that he was ringing. And he was ringing these women. And when I found that, I said, well, what is this? He goes, oh, well, that's really old. But by that time, I'd already given up my career for him. So what was I supposed to do? And then finally, the marriage was well and truly over because his desires just got worse and worse and worse, more and more and more. I mean, I couldn't invite anybody into the house because he might be in the living room naked, pleasuring himself. So I couldn't invite anybody over because I didn't want them to come into the living room and see him sitting there naked, pleasuring himself. But the marriage was well and truly over when he got picked up by the police for some of his autoerotic behavior. He was driving around in his car doing it. And it wasn't a spur of the moment thing. It was definitely premeditated because he would take his underwear off, so he would just wear his jeans with no underwear. What he did was premeditated. It was not a spur of the moment thing. And then he would take a kitchen towel. He would put the kitchen towel on his car seat because obviously he didn't want to get it messy. And then he would drive around all over southern England, park his car somewhere where there were people, and pleasure himself, And so finally, some people phoned the police, and the police came and got him. And then he had to tell me his secret pastime. I mean, I knew something was going on because he was gone all the time. I didn't know where he was and what he was doing, but he was gone all the time. But finally, when he was picked up by the police, he had to tell me what he was doing. And I became hysterical because I consider that mentally ill. I mean, the UK government says I'm mentally ill, but they have no idea what it's like to be living with a seriously mentally ill person, because I consider people who have sexual perversions to be mentally ill. So I became hysterical, and then I went to the doctor. The doctor gave me tranquilizers, but he only gave me tranquilizers for a week, and I didn't get any tranquilizers after that. And I was so traumatized, got no support. I was so traumatized that I got an infection in my breast. So my breasts were painful and tender and out to here. And I didn't do anything about it. I didn't go to the doctor and say, look what's happening to me. I just carried on going to work, even though my breasts were painful and swollen and tender and out to here. And I didn't know. I could have, maybe that was the start of cancer. Maybe that's what caused my breast cancer, because I never went to the doctor about that. But after a year or two, finally the infection subsided because I didn't go to the doctor. And then that's when I knew the marriage was over. And then that's when I realized I had to get out of that marriage. I had to get out of that marriage. And I didn't have any friends or family to help me either. But another thing that I knew, this is another thing, in addition to my ex-husband's abuse and sexual perversions, was that if I ever got sick, I knew he wouldn't take care of me. In fact, to be quite honest about this issue of sexual perversions, when I found out what his secret pastime was, I actually went to the doctor and asked to be sterilized because I couldn't bear the thought of having his children. And the doctor wouldn't do it. He told me I needed to bring my husband along with me. My husband was the reason I wanted to be sterilized. And when my husband's sexual perversions came to the light of day, he was interviewed by the police. He told the police he did it because he was in a bad marriage and he didn't like his job. I was in a bad marriage too, and I wasn't doing that. I was trying to make my marriage work, even though I knew he was advertising in these sex magazines, even though I knew that he was phoning up for phone sex, even though I knew all that, I was still trying to make my marriage work. But it's when he got picked up by the police for things that he was driving around in his car and doing, I realized that the marriage was over. But even through all this, he was still abusing me physically and mentally, and he did things that I did not consent to. And there are no laws at that time to protect a woman for her husband. So he got off scot-free because there were no laws available to protect me from him. And so, in addition to all that, I knew that if I got sick, he wouldn't take care of me. And that was one thing that really bothered me. I thought to myself, well, what are you going to do staying married to this maniac pervert? What are you going to do? If you get sick, he's not going to take care of me. He was awful to me. He would tell me I was overweight and out of shape. I wish I was that overweight and out of shape now, And he would walk around the house and stick his stomach out. And that was meant as a dig at me to try to humiliate me because I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. But I just thought, I got to get out of this marriage. I didn't want to be with him. I consider people who have sexual perversions to be mentally ill. I know the UK government says I'm mentally ill, but I consider my ex-husband to be mentally ill, to be engaging in all of those activities. And so I did get out of the marriage, but I knew if I was sick, he wouldn't take care of me. He might even help it along, So I don't talk about my ex-husband that much, and my current boyfriend, can even tell you that I don't talk about him that much because that is just a sad chapter of my life that I don't want to think about. I'm lucky that I got away from him. I've had problems with accommodation ever since leaving him, but that just shows you how desperate I was to get out of that marriage, how frightened I was of him. And so, yeah, he wouldn't take care of me. No way would he give me a bath if I was old and decrepit and immobile. He probably would like make me even more old and decrepit and immobile to try to get rid of me, you know. So that made me think about that. So I've told you all about my mom, all about my ex-husband and why I left. And so today I asked my boyfriend, I said to him, I said, if I was old and decrepit, I said, would you give me a bath? And my boyfriend said, yes. He said, yes, I would give you a bath. So I've been through hell and back. I've had 2 husbands who were really nasty, nasty people. I haven't even begun to talk about my first ex-husband, but both of them are just as nasty as each other. I've had boyfriends who are not nice, boyfriends who definitely are what I consider to be mentally ill. And these people are boyfriends and husbands who are what I consider to be depraved, personality disordered, mentally ill people, and they are freely walking the streets doing whatever they want to do. And the UK government is telling me, a victim who's been victimized by all these men, has been victimized by Foster Wheeler, that I'm mentally ill. It's unbelievable. It beggars belief that you just absolutely can't believe it. But I did when I was in my 50s. I met my current boyfriend, and he said yes. He said, if you were old and decrepit, he said yes. He said, I would give you a bath. And that was such a sweet thing to say. So I hope it never gets to that point. I hope that I don't live long enough to be old and decrepit and need someone to give me a bath. I hope when it's my time to go that it's quick and painless, but it's there, you know. If I ever do get old and decrepit and can't bathe myself, my boyfriend said he would bathe me. So that was such a sweet thing for him to say, and that's why I wanted to make this video, that even though I've been through hell and back with my family, with my boyfriends, with my husbands, I do have a boyfriend who is kind to me and is nice to me, and he will give me a bath when I'm old and decrepit. So thank you so much for watching my video. If you like my video, please like and subscribe. And it means a lot to me that you are taking the time to watch my video and learn about my life, as pathetic as it may be.